On the 23rd of July 2021, President Michael D. Higgins passed the Climate Action Act into Irish law. The Act means Ireland is on a legally binding path to net zero emissions no later than 2050, with an interim 51% target by 2030. That day, Minister Eamon Ryan said that although the 2030 target was ambitious, it gave us an opportunity to transform our economy, create new jobs and build a greener and fairer future. But 3 years on, current projections suggest we will fall well short of our targets by the end of the decade. So, in today's video, we'll examine how far away Ireland is from its climate goals and explore the measures that are needed to further reduce our emissions over the coming years. But first, if you haven't already, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. The Irish Government has published a climate action plan each year since 2021, outlining policies designed to reduce emissions in each sector of the economy. These plans provide a pathway for reducing our emissions across all sectors of the economy with the aim of 51% reduction by 2030. However, in May 2024, the EPA published a report projecting a 29% decrease in emissions even if all planned policies and measures are fully implemented. Almost all sectors are set to exceed their 2030 targets, but some are expected to do significantly worse than others. So today we'll explore 3 sectors in more detail: the agri-sector, transport and energy industries. We'll start with the sector which is set to remain the largest contributor of emissions in 2030, agriculture. Emissions in the agri-sector come from methane from livestock, manure management and nitrogen and urea application to soils. With the measures already in place, total emissions are projected to decrease by just 1%, accounting for 44% of Ireland's total emissions by 2030. If new policies are implemented correctly, like those set out in the Climate Action Plan 2024, the sector could achieve an 18% reduction in emissions between 2022 and 2030. So what are the additional measures that are needed to achieve this 18% decrease? Among these actions is reducing crude protein in the diets of pigs and dairy cows during grazing season. As a rule of thumb, a 1% reduction in protein reduces the excretion of nitrogen by about 10%. Increasing protected urea fertilizer would also reduce greenhouse gas and ammonia emissions. This is urea treated with a urease inhibitor, reducing ammonia loss to low levels. An ambitious goal is 90 to 100% uptake of protected urea on grassland farms by 2030. And sales of straight urea must also be limited to 20,000 tonnes per year from 2025. Measures to reduce methane emissions include slurry additives, reducing the slaughter age for cows, a reduced age to first calving, and feed additives for cattle. However, growth in agriculture activity could result in even higher emissions than those projected. Something as seemingly unrelated as strong milk prices could have a major impact on emissions. So what about transport? Well, with the measures in place, the sector will see a 5% reduction in emissions by the end of the decade, when it will contribute 21% of Ireland's total CO2 output. The main ways of reducing transport emissions are the electrification of vehicles and an increase in the mix of renewable fuels in petrol and diesel. The 5% projections assume that there will be under 700,000 EVs on the road by 2030, including around 430,000 passenger battery electric vehicles and 263,000 hybrids. A more optimistic outlook, taking into account the Climate Action Plan 2024, will see a 26% reduction in CO2 emissions. To achieve this, there must be 945,000 EVs on Irish roads in the next 6 years. This includes over 845,000 private electric vehicles. Behavioural changes are also necessary, such as a 50% increase in daily active travel journeys and a 130% increase in daily public transport journeys. But these ambitious targets must be met by incentives over the coming years. The number of new electric vehicles sold in April this year dropped over 41% when compared to the same month last year. This means that we need to see rapid investment in convenient and affordable EV charging points and extending incentives such as the purchase grant. And finally, let's look at energy industries, which contributed 17% of Ireland's total emissions in 2022. Due to the rise in renewables, the sector is projected to reduce to just 8% of our total emissions by 2030 with existing measures. If measures included in the Climate Action Plan 2024 are implemented, the energy industry sector could see 80% of its electricity coming from renewables. The sector has seen significant progress in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, with a 24% decrease in emissions from electricity generation between 2022 and 2023. The use of peat in power generation ceased in 2023, and the use of coal at Money Point is to be phased out at the end of 2025. And by 2030, the majority of Ireland's non-renewable energy generation is expected to come from natural gas. So, to sum up, the energy sector is expected to decarbonise quicker than others, while progress is much slower in agriculture. As for transport, it remains to be seen whether the ambitious goal of almost 1 million EVs on the road will actually happen. What is clear is that further incentives and the full implementation of our climate action plans are necessary to reach the best case scenario of a 29% reduction in emissions on 2018 levels by 2030. To learn more about Ireland's climate goals and how you can play your part by adopting renewable energy, check out EnergyEfficiency.ie. We have tips, advice and recommendations on all things renewable energy, and we've created a list of Ireland's most reliable installers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.